Thanks, Greg, and it's my pleasure to be able to tell you just a little bit of history about myself. I really look at myself as a marine aquaculture specialist who has worked with maybe corals for 20 years. And in fact, yeah, you can look up at my age and now try to figure out that my actually very first coral expedition was in 1966. So it's not one where I must have been only a couple of years old when I did that. But that was actually for the to look and find the location for the West Indies Laboratory in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And I have to tell you, back in 1966, my job was to actually take pieces of live coral, put them into a jar to send back to the university. At that time, that was an okay thing. And as I'm telling people now, I'm making up by the thousands for those few corals that I collected for the scientists back in 1966. Regretfully, that lab, Hurricane Hugo, eliminated it. But also, I want to tell you another couple of little story histories is that I did my senior coral project right here in Grand Cayman in 1975. I spent a month and a half on this island going around to all the other coasts. It seemed to be a lot less cars then for some reason. And my job was to identify some of the hard corals, soft corals, and macroalgae for the island. And so it was one of my first introductions to, again, a very beautiful place, very beautiful island. And I spent the rest of my life actually looking at technologies to be applied. I'm not a basic scientist that sits in a laboratory and looks at one little part. I wanted to actually learn to be productive in an applied science that was able to actually do something out there. So a lot of my experience is experience of hands-on. And those hands-on experience included producing some of the largest jobs for production of millions of corals, in fact, billions of corals, and thousands of oysters and shrimp in sustainable recirculating systems. And I ended up in 1995 starting a project where we produced actually thousands of corals for the aquarium trade. It is a company called ORA, Oceans, Reefs, and Aquariums. It's the largest in the world. And we produced 100,000 corals for the people that used to take corals out of the Pacific Ocean for their reef tanks in their house. And I thought it was a great purpose until one of my now good friends, Philippe Cousteau, came up to me and said, "Why are you doing this for the aquarium trade? You should be doing this for the reef." And I literally quit my job at one of the second largest oceanographic institutes where I was the director of aquaculture for 17 years and started working at the third largest oceanographic institute, Mote Marine Lab, as their director of coral reef restoration. And for the past 15 years, I've developed, some by accident, some of these techniques that are able to grow corals that's a game changer for corals. And I'm real proud to say that instead of retiring last year, I decided that I wanted to continue and show the world in places that are dear to my heart of how they can help save coral reefs. And when I heard after the fact of what was taking place here that I could be maybe added on by showing some of the local people here that are already working on some coral restoration of the staghorn corals and others, that I may be able to have an opportunity to come here and share with the local experts that are here, the people that are already doing as divers, and maybe make a program to grow more than just the staghorn corals, but the big elkhorn corals again, and the other 28 species that make the reef the massive corals. So I'm here to help. I'm not here to take anybody else's job. I want to work with the locals here that are divers and are scientists, that are volunteers. I hope to be able to build an effort that's an educational demonstration for not just the school children here, but for those 2 million people that come here. Could be like the Turtle Center, a demonstration to show people how you've done so well with turtle conservation. I was so pleased and blessed. 2 years ago, I was nominated as the Conservationist of the Year for 2017, and I hope to do that to not just retire and go away, but to help people in islands like Grand Cayman to restore their corals for the future. Hence the name Plant a Million Corals, a nonprofit foundation that just started up to be able to help people around the world to do this. Thank you.